Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Future History Project, Isaac Asimov's Future History Project. And this edition is for Isaac Asimov's Stars Like Dust. And this is the first of the Empire novels. It was published in 1951. It wasn't the first Empire novel that was written. The first was Currents of Space. I believe it is the second one, or Pebble in the Sky. No, Pebble in the Sky. Oh, I'm getting confused now. Just bear with me. Um, Currents of Space is the second book, Internal Chronology, and that was written the third. So basically, the first one written was The Pebble in the Sky, which is the third volume, and then The Stars Like Dust was written, which is the first, and then Current Space, which is the second. So the Current Space, the second volume, was written last. Now, Stars Like Dust has a bit of an interesting sort of history to it. Uh, First of all, I'll just go through a little bit of the story. It's set quite a long time before the Empire, actually. But there is a small little empire of 50 stars near the Horsehead Nebula, and it's the Tyrannan Empire. Now, they have subjugated a number of stars, and uh, there is disgruntlement with the people. So there's a rebellion in the works, I guess, as you would say, and there are a number of stars and high-ranking officials that are plotting to overthrow the Tyrannan Empire. And there's lots of sort of plans and subterfuge throughout. But it has basically to do the plot with a son of a rancher, planet of ranchers of the cattle planet, and his father gets uh, um, he's killed by the Tyrannan Empire for treason. But the son is on Earth learning. Well, he's at university, but that's cut short, and he has to go back. And he has a friend, or he thought was a friend, but it turns out that it's an enemy. So there's a lot of sort of political maneuvering and backstabbing throughout. And he goes to a neighboring star for help, which he does get it, but not from the director, or the one that's in charge of the planet, the political sort of pawn of the Tyrannan Empire. But his cousin and his daughter help him, and they try to find a planet that is planning to have a revolution and overthrow the Tyrannan Empire. It's an odd sort of convoluted story to a certain extent. Um, and part of the subplot is the search for a an Earth document that has disappeared, but an important document, historical document that will free everybody, apparently. And that is in the very last lines of the book. And I'm not going to spoil that for you, but yeah. And Asimov's writing in here, I don't think is at his best. He's got a female character, but uh, every time he sort of writes about her, it's always some physical aspect of her, generally speaking. And yeah, it's a little. And he had to get a fist fight in as well. Just sort of not the greatest of sort of situations, and the way he was writing. but also too that historical document is just it. When I first read it many years ago, it just made me roll my eyes, and even more so now. But as I say, but the whole story has a bit of a history and to it, because it was uh, Asimov sort of rewrote this probably more than most of his stories that he ever did, and the idea of the historical document was forced on him, or he says it was forced on him, and he agreed to it by H.L. Gold, Horace Gold of Galaxy Science Fiction, where it actually appeared in 1951 in its pages in three parts, called Tyrannan Empire, or Tyrannan. Um, but he started writing it like in sort of 49, 50, because he was writing in January 1950 a second version of it, and he he was writing from an outline, or at least he tried to write from an outline, but he veered from the outline, and it was the last time he ever tried writing from an outline, apparently. And but that wasn't good enough. It was sent back by Doubleday, and saying that it was overwritten, and it needed a rewrite. So on April 1st, he started it again, right from scratch, basically, for the third time. And as I say, he didn't like the inclusion of the historical document, but he did acquiesce it, and he continued um, doing it. He never pulled the book from sort of circulation in any shape or form. But also too, there is an interesting little bit in here that he puts as an afterword to this. He just says that The Stars Like Dust was written and first published in 1950. In that time, we did not know as much about planetary atmospheres as we do now. In Chapter 17, I speak of a lifeless world as possessing nitrogen and oxygen, but no carbon dioxide. It seems now quite certain that a lifeless E-type world, a small and rocky one like Earth, that is relatively close to its star, would, if it possessed an atmosphere, have one that was made up of nitrogen and carbon dioxide, but no oxygen. I can't change Chapter 17 appropriately without having to rewrite a great deal of the book. So I ask you to suspend your disbelief in this respect and enjoy the book, assuming you do, on its own terms. And he wrote this in November 1982. The other thing, too, is that while the character Byron is on Earth, and they talk about Earth is radioactive, and it's basically caused by uh, a nuclear war, Third World War. However, that was changed, sort of, and the reason for the radioactivity was given in the Robots in Empire, where it was done by Aurorans to sort of make humans leave, and Gisgard allowed it to happen to sort of release the natural radioactivity, or increase the natural radioactivity over a period of time, to make it so Earth would be uninhabitable after a certain time, so humans would have to leave. And Gisgard did this to sort of promote pushing the humans to go out into the galaxy and spread, rather than having the spacers, do it all, which the spacers were sort of dying as a race. So yeah, and it was an interesting story. As I say, it was a bit of an adventure story, and it was fun to read. Um, but as I say, there's a few things, and that the last little bit and the historical document just uh, it almost ruins the whole story for me. And it always has, because like even Asimov said, it's so unbelievable that it would mean that much, the way it was talking about. So he did not like that subplot himself. He realized it was bad. Groff Conklin, not the editor, but the book reviewer for Galaxy, praised it and thought it was really good, and it generally got pretty good press for it when it was released. So the next one in the series, chronologically, is The Currents of Space, and I'll be reading that next, hopefully this weekend, and I'll have a report of it, basically, and talk about it next week. I believe there is one of these, and I think it's this one where there's an earlier draft that he's published. I've got it somewhere. I thought I had it on the shelf here, but I mixed up two books. There was two books that I had that had a second collection of his science fiction essays, and one that had earlier version of, I believe it's The Stars Like Dust. And I can't find it at the moment because I've moved everything. But that is something that I will be returning to eventually, and talking about it as the earlier version of this. Um, and I'm pretty sure it's this one. Because as I say, there was three attempts at it, so I'm pretty sure it was this one. But I've never read that one, so it will be an interesting foray. I kick myself because I was sure that I had the right book, but I didn't. I had the wrong one, and I put it aside. Um, oh well. It'll be something that I will do in the future, probably after we finish the whole series of stories and books, and then I'll start coming back to some other things that are sort of um, other aspects, I guess, of the Future History project. Anyway, that's this version. I forget what week we're officially what week we're up to. It's still in the 30s, high 30s, I think it was. But anyway, I'll put that down in the title. Um, but anyway, I'll see you next time, BookTube. Thank you.